Thank you, Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, before getting into my paper, I would like to tell you that this paper has already been presented at the Kadiragama Institute. So I would like to acknowledge the permission of the Kadiragama Institute for me to deliver this paper, the latest version of this paper, at this symposium. Okay, the topic is regional organizations in the Indian Ocean region, possibilities of collaboration between IOMAC and IOR. In ancient times, Sri Lanka functioned as a maritime hub between East Asia on the one hand and Africa and Europe on the other. Today, not only does Sri Lanka function as a maritime hub connecting India with the rest of the world, it also has the potential to play a similar role in China's growing trade with Africa. From this map, you can see how geostrategically Sri Lanka is located in relation to sea lanes in the Indian Ocean. While earlier definitions of the Indian Ocean have described it as connecting the four major land bodies of Africa, Asia, Australia, and Antarctica, more recent definitions have tended to exclude Antarctica. From this map, you can see how where the point A is located, that's the border of what was earlier called the South Sea, which is today called the Southern Ocean. So with that, in this latest map, the Antarctica and the Southern Ocean has been excluded from the Indian Ocean. So these are some sort of preliminary remarks on the subject. The Indian Ocean rim consists of 29 littoral countries and 6 island countries. The Indian Ocean region can either be limited to the rim countries mentioned above, or it can be expanded to include landlocked countries dependent on the Indian Ocean. Because this is important, because one very important thing that the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea did was to recognize the importance of the importance of the sea for landlocked countries and the need for securing their participation in an oceans regime. So that's one point we need to keep in mind when I will go into possible collaboration between IOMAC and IOR. The presentation will examine two efforts at institutionalizing international cooperation in the Indian Ocean region: the Indian Ocean Marine Affairs Corporation, or IOMAC, and the Indian Ocean Rim Association for Regional Cooperation, or IOR, and make a case for the coexistence of IOMAC and IOR. In the late 1980s, the IOMAC Secretariat in Sri Lanka undertook a preparatory work on its program of cooperation. It identified areas for cooperation in respect of each of the principal sectors of IOMAC activity. 1, marine science, technology and ocean services. 2, living resources. 3, non-living resources. 4, ocean law, policy and management. 5, maritime transport and communications. And 6, the marine environment. From these different sectors of IOMAC activity, this presentation will focus on living resources and maritime transport because they could be of some relevance for IOR. The IOMAC 1 preparatory meeting, as well as the first conference at its consultative phase in 1985 and the final phase in 1987, for the first time took cognizance at the intergovernmental level of the rapid development of a major industrial-scale distant water tuna fishery in the Indian Ocean in the early 1980s and called for the early establishment of an appropriate regulatory body for management of Indian Ocean tuna. Subsequent IOMAC meetings, especially at the Standing Committee, kept relevant developments under review and acted as a catalyst for deliberations on the establishment of such a body, which eventually emerged under the auspices of the Food and Agriculture Organization in the form of the Indian Ocean Tuna Commission. Continuing with living resources, in January 1989, a group of IOMAC fisheries and legal experts met in Jakarta to prepare common positions for intergovernmental deliberations on the subject. In this context, IOMAC consistently maintained the importance to be attached to the participation of distant water fishing nations in a future management regime that would ensure its effectiveness, as well as emphasize the importance of providing for the increased participation of developing Indian Ocean states in harnessing the resource. Coming to maritime transport, IOMAC held a meeting of experts in shipping and port development hosted by the government of Kenya in Mombasa in August 1990. In July 1991, the 7th meeting of the Standing Committee adopted and recommended for government approval terms of reference for the IOMAC Association of Shipping and Port Authorities. By the late 1990s, however, only 6 states, Indonesia, Kenya, Mauritius, Mozambique, Pakistan and Sri Lanka, had ratified the 1990 Arusha Agreement for the formal establishment of IOMAC as an organization, even though a further 3, Iran, Nepal and Tanzania, had signed it. In accordance with Article 16 of the agreement that was supposed to establish IOMAC, it required ratification by a minimum of 10 states to enter into force, but that did not happen. By the late 1990s, only these states had ratified it, so it simply did not have the required number of ratifications to establish IOMAC as an organization. Major Indian Ocean states such as India, Australia and South Africa did not become members of IOMAC. Nevertheless, Australia, which is the current chair of IOMAC, which is the current chair of IORAC, has shown some interest in IOMAC. Coming to IORAC, the IORAC Charter adopted in 1997 emphasizes economic cooperation. Article 2.3 of the Charter stipulates that all decisions are to be taken on the basis of consensus. The IORAC Secretariat was set up in Mauritius. The first work program of IORAC consisted of the following 10 projects: cooperation in standards and accreditation, Indian Ocean Rim Business Center and Indian Ocean Rim Network, investment facilitation and promotion, IOR Chair in Indian Ocean Studies and Associate Fellows, Trade Promotion Program and IOR Trade Fair, development, upgrading and management of seaports, maritime transport, insurance and reinsurance, human resource development cooperation, working towards complementarity, a comparative analysis of existing multilateral and regional economic and trade policy arrangements and processes, tourism promotion and development, and technology enhancement in the Indian Ocean region. Now, from this first work program, it brings out clearly the early focus of IORAC on economic cooperation. Sri Lanka hosted the ministerial meetings in 2003 and 2004 in Colombo, and by November 2012, the association had 20 members, 6 dialogue partners and 2 observers. While for quite some time since its inception in 1997, the IORAC focused on economic cooperation, at least since the 9th ministerial meeting in 2009, its agenda has begun to broaden to include maritime issues. Now, I will conclude by making my case for the collaboration between IOMAC and IORAC. In a paper published in 2002, the late Professor Kenneth Macpherson of Australia had noted that IORAC was too narrowly focused on trade facilitation and had argued that the agenda of IOMAC, an initiative which has done a great deal of work on marine and maritime issues, was worth revisiting by IORAC. Since the 9th ministerial meeting in 2009 at Yemen, the IORAC agenda has shown signs of broadening to include a fisheries support unit and a maritime transport council. A memorandum of understanding on the FSU was adopted during the 9th ministerial meeting at Yemen in 2009, and the document establishing the MTC, or Maritime Transport Council, was adopted during the 10th ministerial meeting in 2010. Now, the key thing about what IORAC can learn from IOMAC with regard to fisheries is basically the need to secure the participation of extra-regional countries in an Indian Ocean management regime for fisheries, because many extra-regional countries from Europe and East Asia, they engage in distant water fishing in the Indian Ocean. Now, without securing the participation of these countries in a future management regime which is envisioned by the FSU, then it will not be effective if it does not secure the participation of extra-regional countries. So that is one thing, that is one very important lesson that IORAC can learn from IOMAC. And with regard to the Maritime Transport Council, the important lesson is that the landlocked countries around the Indian Ocean, maritime transport plays a key role in supplying these countries with the goods that they need for their economic life. So now, without the participation of these countries, these countries actually have a stake in maritime transport in the Indian Ocean. And one important thing that IOMAC did was give a space for the participation of these countries. And that's the other lesson that IORAC can learn from IOMAC. So the work already done by IOMAC on living resources and maritime transport could be of relevance in achieving the objectives of IORAC's FSU and MTC. This could be a sound basis for collaboration between IORAC and IOMAC. Thank you.